What if the entire magnificent engine of scientific progress was not fueled by a pristine search for truth, but by a sequence of profound misunderstandings? What if your most fervent beliefs hang less on cold reason than on the sheer, electrifying thrill of the show? This is the unsettling landscape Friedrich Nietzsche explores in The Gay Science. Tonight, we plunge headfirst into Book 1, specifically Aphorisms 37, 38, and 39. Here, Nietzsche digs relentlessly, uncovering the non-rational bedrock, hidden drives, raw affective energy, even our very physical makeup, that he insists truly sculpts our knowledge, our loyalties, the very flavor of our culture. Brace yourselves. Prepare to question everything. Let us kick off with Aphorism 37. Here, Nietzsche zeroes in on the historical engines driving science through the centuries. He points to three main forces, and provocatively calls them errors. First, that drive burning strong in minds like Newton's, he suggests, to see science as a divine roadmap, a way to grasp God's goodness, God's wisdom, science as holy text. Second, the Enlightenment's unwavering faith, Voltaire perhaps, in knowledge as pure utility, a belief in some ironclad chain linking knowledge straight to morality, straight to happiness, science as the guaranteed path to human perfection. And third, a motive Nietzsche pins on Spinoza, this idea that science offers something uniquely innocent, selfless, harmless, a pure pursuit, utterly removed from humanity's messy, evil drives, a realm where knowing itself felt almost divine. Now, hold on. Calling these deep-seated historical forces errors, that is Nietzsche throwing down a challenge. He is not saying people did not believe these things. No. He is ripping into their validity, questioning whether these were the real reasons, the sufficient fuel for science's relentless march. What does it mean to call the hunt for divine fingerprints, or human betterment through reason, an error? It screams that Nietzsche sees these justifications as noble lies, beautiful illusions, camouflage for other, darker, less acknowledged forces churning beneath the surface. What forces? The will to power? Could it be? A thirst for order, for control, for a certain mastery over nature, over ourselves, all dolled up in respectable robes? This demands we ask, what unspoken desires power even our most supposedly objective quests for knowledge? This dissection opens up a rather explosive possibility when we eye the structure of science today. Forget the individual scientist's pure heart, chasing truth, beauty, cures. How does the system of science itself operate, welded into the machinery of economics and politics? Does not the pursuit of knowledge, even one launched with Spinoza's pristine innocence, inevitably get snagged? Tangled up with power, with money, with the agendas of the state? Nietzsche's probe into motivation forces us beyond personal intentions. It drags us into questioning the systemic drag, the co-option that can warp the very direction and use of knowledge, turning even the most harmless question into a weapon for ends its creators never dreamed of. The error, then, might not just be the pretty story we tell ourselves at the start. It might be to blind us, the failure to see how knowledge-seeking always gets its hands dirty in the grubby arenas of human drives and power plays. So, Nietzsche starts by shattering our pristine image of science's noble origins. Then, bam, he shifts gears dramatically in Aphorism 38, the explosive ones. Here, he delivers a razor-sharp psychological insight aimed squarely at the volatile energy of youth. Consider, he urges, how young men, and maybe we can stretch this insight, though his aim is specific, how they often hurl themselves into causes with a passion that totally outstrips any careful calculation of reasons. What truly ignites them, Nietzsche declares, is not the cause's logical scaffolding or its ethical purity. Oh no, it is the spectacle, the fireworks of surrounding zeal. It is the sight of the burning match, the electric anticipation of an explosion of energy, of total commitment, the cause itself almost irrelevant. And so, he observes, the subtler seducers, those masters of mobilization, they get this, they get it perfectly. They do not bother with convoluted arguments. They craft the expectation of explosion, appealing straight to that primal hunger for white-hot engagement. Reasons, he snaps, are not the way to win over these powder kegs. This is a profoundly anti-rationalist strike at how we form beliefs, how we commit. It shoves affect, raw energy, the sheer aesthetics of fervor right into the spotlight, eclipsing careful thought. Think about that image, the burning match. It is immediate, visceral, spellbinding. It utterly bypasses the slow, patient burn of critical thinking. While his focus on young men might smell of its era, the core truth, it punches wider. Does it not mail something vital about the roar of mass movements, about online flash mobs, about even the sometimes breathless, uncritical embrace of intellectual fads within the academy's supposedly hallowed halls? How often is loyalty really about the perceived charge, the revolutionary buzz of an idea, rather than its meticulous dissection? Now, drag this insight screaming into the structural dynamics of today's communication, and what do you see? Nietzsche's subtler seducers feel chillingly familiar. They foreshadow the very logic driving so much modern politics. Online influence campaigns. It is the mastery of the spectacle, the deliberate farming of emotional intensity, the crafting of echo chambers where passion just feeds itself. The goal? Not to persuade with logic. It is to ignite, to channel that explosive energy. This is not just about fake news or fleeting trends. It is about seeing a fundamental lever of human motivation, one that operates right alongside, and often tramples all over, rational argument. A lever that the sophisticated players learn to pull, focusing on the emotional payload, the burning match, not the substance of the fire itself. Why does this matter? Because it screams that vulnerability to this kind of manipulation is not some flaw in other people. It is a potential landmine within our own human wiring, within our desperate need for meaning, for belonging, especially when faced with dazzling displays of collective energy. From the psychology of passion, Nietzsche pivots again in Aphorism 39, changed taste. And here he drops an even more radical bombshell about cultural evolution. He argues that shifts in common taste, what we find appealing, repellent, valuable, are vastly more fundamental than shifts in mere opinions. Opinions, proofs, refutations. That whole intellectual masquerade, he scoffs. They are just symptoms, ripples on the surface. They signal an underlying tide change in taste, but they do not cause it. This is a full frontal assault on the cozy idea that cultures progress mainly through reasonable debate and bright ideas. So, how does taste mutate, in Nietzsche's view? Through powerful, influential individuals, figures radiating a certain glorious sense of shamelessness. These titans simply declare, and tyrannically enforce, their judgments, their hoc est ridiculum, hoc est absurdum. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. This raw imposition creates pressure, a pressure that slowly, surely hardens into habit, and eventually, it blossoms into a widespread need. But wait, where does the peculiar taste of these cultural strongmen come from? Nietzsche points to something deeper than whimsy or preference, their physics. Now, this word is dynamite. Handle with care. He connects it to their lifestyle, their diet, their digestion, even the chemical soup simmering in their blood and brains. In short, their entire embodied, physiological reality. Their judgments about beauty, about morality, he claims, are just the subtlest tones vibrating from this physics. They possess the raw courage to own up to their physics, to listen to its deep bodily imperatives. Now, critical point. Do not mistake this for some crude biological destiny. That path leads to dangerous nonsense. Nietzsche seems to wield physis to embrace the whole of our embodied being, the pre-rational, the physiological, maybe even the unconscious soil from which our judgments erupt. It is a defiant kick against the ghost in the machine, against mind-body splits. It insists our most profound values, our keenest aesthetic reactions, are rooted deep in our flesh, in our lived, breathing, material existence. The courage he speaks of, it is the guts to acknowledge and assert this embodied truth against the tyranny of abstract ideas or stale conventions. What makes this insight scorchingly powerful? It rips the engine of cultural change out of the clean room of abstract for one day. A life about natural gaps, artificially informed by the second medicines of culture work. Text convinced the solid language. Life with Wiccans or whimsy, or end with weakened down. Love coming, love off. The real weight hits when you think about how standards of beauty, of morality, hell, even of what counts as smart, actually do change. Is it mostly calm, reasoned argument? Or is it the brute assertion of new sensibilities by those already holding the cultural megaphone? Those with the shamelessness to enforce their vision? This echoes uncannily, perhaps, with thinkers like Bourdieu and his habitus, where our embodied dispositions, forged in the crucible of our social lives, which Nietzsche ties to physis, churn out tastes that become badges of status, enforced through sheer symbolic clout. Nietzsche's tyrannical enforcement, it is not always jackboots and decrees. It can be the subtle stranglehold of cultural gatekeepers, of institutions deciding who gets heard. The sheer magnetic force of personalities who dare to redraw the maps of what is valuable, what is compelling, or yes, what is utterly ridiculous. This viewpoint forces us, demands us, to stare unflinchingly at the often hidden physiological and power-drenched roots of values we might otherwise accept as timeless, objective, or rationally sound. So, across these packed, potent aphorisms, 37, 38, and 39 of the Gay Science, Book 1, Nietzsche grabs us by the collar. He forces us to peer beneath the shiny surfaces of progress and belief. He pulverizes the myth of science's pure origins. He exposes the volcanic force of affect overwhelming reason in our deepest commitments. And he radically recast cultural shifts, not as intellectual parlor games, but as battlegrounds of embodied taste and assertive will. His relentless digging unearths a terrain where body chemistry, psychology, and raw power often call the shots on what we cherish and chase. But how do these subterranean currents erupt into the structures of society itself? Into our jobs, our hierarchies, even how we feel about failure? Next time, we press deeper into Book 1. We turn to Aphorisms 40 through 42, where Nietzsche wields this sharp, critical lens against the vulgarity of industrial life, the essence of work and boredom, and the very notion of regret. Prepare for a blistering critique of modern existence and the flimsy values holding it upright.